Our main man, Lionel Hollins, NBA legendary man himself. Coach, how you doing, brother?
How you doing,
Coach? I'm doing great.
Hey, I got to ask you, Coach, there's no way you're from Ark City, Kansas.
Well, by way of Ark City, Kansas. I was only born there. I was raised in Las Vegas.
Okay, got you. I've been coaching in Kansas for so many years and played my college ball there, so I was like, Ark, no way. I'm like, I saw that, and I was like, wow. That was like not too far from where I was, and I was like, that's crazy. That's nestled in the middle of kind of nowhere. You know how that is, Kansas. But
Yep. I've been back there a few times.
Yeah. I can't thank you enough for popping on here, Coach. I know you were on the Laker team that won that bubble championship. I'm good friends with Danny Green, and he's told me crazy stories about just how hard that really was. My first question to you, can you let the fans and the casuals out here know that wasn't some asterisk earned championship, because you had to be in a bubble on lockdown, and Danny said that was the hardest thing he ever had to do?
Well, fortunately for me, I wasn't on lockdown. I wasn't even in the bubble. They wouldn't let me go. I had some pre-conditions health-wise that they didn't want to take chances on me getting sick and having to leave the bubble. But I was there every day, video and at the games and the meetings and practices. But you have to understand that the reason it was so difficult, there was no home court advantage.
Right.
Everybody was on the same travel schedule, which was zero. Everybody go to the game on a bus, come right back to the hotel, eat, lay around. There was no fans yelling and screaming and giving you a little bit of edge or giving your bench a little bit of an edge. So it was tougher than people want to give credit to. The only thing that was for me would have been there's no travel. So, but it was no travel for everybody or anybody actually.
No doubt.
No, for sure. No, again, Coach, thanks for hopping on here. Kind of staying along your coaching here. I think you most recently coached with Houston Rockets, I believe, and seeing their success this year and them being the number 2 seed and kind of seeing, I guess, that quick turnaround. How surprised are you, if at all, that they have turned this thing around so quickly?
Well, there was 7 or 8 guys on our roster that aren't even in the NBA anymore. So that's how you really turn around a team quickly, is you get rid of the guys that aren't performing or you don't believe that they will in the future. And they kept Saquon, they kept Jabari Smith, they kept Jalen Green, Tate, and there was one other guy I can't remember off the top of my head. But then they brought in a whole new group. They needed a point guard in the worst way, and they went out and got Van Vliet. And he's done a marvelous job. They went out and got Brooks, who was a tough guy, a defender who sets the tone and the culture for toughness. And then they brought in Jeff Green, who was a veteran, and a couple other players. And so that's what makes your team. And they're young guys that they've drafted. I mean, forget the guys I just mentioned. If you look at Whitmore and you look at Amon Thompson, those guys are very long and athletic guys, and they give teams fit with their ability to switch and play defense and also to run up and down the court. You know, they're in a situation now where they have a series against a very experienced, also talented squad, and also they have one of the best players of all time in Steph Curry. And then you add that with Butler, and it's going to be a tough series for them. But you know, they're going to have to figure out a way to score in order to beat this team.
Coach, let me ask you something. In 95, I think you were on that first original inaugural season of the Grizzlies, if I'm not mistaken. And then I know you became interim head coach later. What's it like to take over a new expansion club? And do you think Vegas, since you're from there, will be the new home for an NBA team?
Well, I hope that Vegas is. They have everything else going for them. They have facilities, they have fans, they have transitional fans, but they also have permanent fans. And I think that's important. If you look at all the teams that they've had, they do very well at the box office. And they've also done well, except for the Raiders so far, have done well on the field. But I think that the toughest part in my experience in Vancouver is different than experiences on other expansion teams because it was in another country.
Yeah.
We were introducing basketball to Canada, which was hockey. And that other game that they play with the little round ball on the ice, I don't even know what it's called. But I remember the very first time in a press room, you go in there and there's nothing but hockey games on TV. There's
Yeah.
no basketball games during the basketball season, just hockey. And so that was tough, and introducing and indoctrinating the fans into the NBA game. But that was great because they did latch on, and they wanted to see basketball, and they loved basketball, and there were players that they knew about that they wanted to see. So that was good. The hard part is that expansion is tough. When you take guys from other teams, usually you're not getting their best guys. They get to protect 7 or 8 guys, and you get 2 or 3 guys that you want. They're not the guys that are going to come in and turn your franchise around. They're just guys that are stopgaps until you build during the draft. And then in Vancouver, the tough part was for 2 years or 3 years, you couldn't get the #1 pick. And I think we won it once or twice, but we don't get it because we're an expansion team. And then your salary cap is shortened because, you have owners of other teams say, well, how are we going to let this team come in, get the #1 pick, and have the same salary cap as we have? So it was difficult from that perspective. Met a lot of great players and all, but it's not something that you want to go through.
No doubt.
Yeah, no doubt for sure. And kind of staying on the lines of coaching with the Grizzlies, man, you coach some really good physical teams there in the West. You had Zebo, you had Gasol, I think Tony Allen, if I'm not mistaken, was on those teams, and Conley. I guess just talk about just your experience, coaching that club, and just is there like a favorite, I guess, memory that comes to mind when you think about those years with the team?
Shit, Coach, you're the 8th seed that beat the 1 seed San Antonio. Aren't you like the 3rd or 4th team franchise ever to beat a 1 seed?
Yeah, that's something that's obviously was gratifying. But when you look at that team, I tell people, no one knew how good they could be. Nobody knew how good Marc Gasol was. Nobody knew how good Conley. In fact, the team itself was trying to trade Conley when I came to the team. And I sat down with the general manager and owner, and I just said, listen, this kid was the 4th pick in the draft. This is his 3rd year. He hasn't played at all. First year, hurt. 2nd year, no play. So how about just going out and playing the guys and see who could play? We don't even know what we have on the roster. And that's what we did at the end. And we weeded out guys that weren't committed. There's a lot of players that play basketball. They're interested in playing. They're interested in doing well, but they're not committed to winning. They're not committed to doing what it takes to win. And so we got rid of a lot of guys and some named guys. And the next year we came back and we get Zach because we lose the #1 pick to the Clippers and they take Blake Griffin. And I told everybody, I said, we can get Zach Randolph. And they go, why would we want Zach Randolph? First of all, I said, Zach can play. I'd known Zach ever since he'd been in the league out in Vegas at Gerb's camp every summer. And they said, well, we don't want anybody like that on our team. In fact, that's what the owner said. And I said,
that's crazy. Coach, you put in a Conley and Gasol into that lineup last night watching the Lakers get by the Timberwolves, and Conley's still out here hooping. Are you shocked to see that this many years later at 37 he's still high performer?
37 and the body that he has, 170 pounds, 6 feet, 6'1". So I think that's the amazing part, but his commitment to taking care of his body, getting his rest, eating right, all the things that it takes to have longevity in the league. And he's been fortunate not to have really serious injuries that have stayed with him for a while. And that's the big thing. As I look at Ja Morant, that's the one thing that I worry about him. He's injured all the time. And sometimes you have to adjust your game. It's like a quarterback's running after they get flushed out of the pocket. There's a time when you run, and there's a time when you slide, and there's a time when you go out of bounds. And Ja's got to learn that just going in there taking on everybody because you're very athletic, they're still bigger than you, and they're still going to knock you to the floor, and the floor has never lost a battle.
Yeah. You I think you led Memphis to what at the time 56 wins, which was a record. That's a hell of a year. Let me ask you something. NBA today versus yesterday, I guess. What's the biggest eye opener to you? Is it the rules? Is it the instant replay over every dang seemed like common foul, and now we're is it a flagrant one or a two? It gets hard to watch as a fan now when you grew up as a basketball head, and I'm like, I played with Ed and Charles O'Bannon in high school. I played with the O'Bannon brothers, and I played hoop, and I got to play against a lot of NBA greats growing up. And I'm just like, man, the game was just so much different. It was actually
when you look at the review, they got to be like a minute, and if you don't see it, we got to go with what we have, and we got to take 5 minutes, and then they walk away, and everybody in the arena, everybody on TV, they're thinking that the call should be reversed, and the guys don't reverse it. And so, it's still the same human element that comes down to it. Somebody's looking at it and making a decision and helping two other guys look at it, and they're coming to an agreement. But the reality is there still can be wrong. So we're never going to change the human element. The other part is that it's a game of mistakes. Players make mistakes. Officials make. I hear announcers, "Oh, that was a clear foul." So what? They didn't call it. There's many fouls that they do call, and there's times when you foul and they don't call. So, it's just all part of the game. And I hear this, we got to let the players win the game. Officials should win it. If you foul, you foul. If you foul at a bad moment, that's on you. But the biggest change in NBA is the players are playing obviously longer today, but they also have started playing earlier. And they've been in the 8, 9, 10-year-old playing around the country in AAU. The negative is they don't get the same kind of coaching. They don't get the same kind of discipline. I've coached AAU. I coached Jalen Green. I coached Hakeem in AAU. And you practice once a week. And then you meet up, and then you meet in a city and you play. And so it's not the same structure as everybody thinks. There's some teams are better at handling that. But the NBA itself, the biggest thing is the number of games and the travel. You travel laid back on a charter trip up on the table, cocktails, you have everything. You go to practice in the morning, there's breakfast. You get done with practice, there's lunch. Before a game, on game day, in the morning, there's breakfast. There's a noontime meal after you come back from shoot around. Before you go to the game, there's food outside the locker room. After the game, there's food outside the locker room. It's really a country club atmosphere, and that's cool if the players are getting their rest. And because when you charter, I don't care where you go or when you go. If players don't get to that next city and go to bed, you defeated the purpose. And there's probably a lot of that going on as well. But I looked at a schedule, and I meant to pull it up before I came on, but we played 6 games in 7 days. We played 3 games, had a day off, played 3 games, all in different cities. And then later on in the year, we played 6 and 8 games, but we were on the East Coast. We played 2 games on the East Coast. We came to the West Coast and played the 3rd game after being on the East Coast, the 3rd in a row. And then we go home and we have 2 days off. We play a game, and then we go back on the road, back to California and play 2 more games. So 6 and 8, and guys are crying about back-to-back. If you go to AAU games, you go to college tournaments, they're playing back-to-back. And when you go to the gym, you play back-to-back. You go every day.
All day you play.
Exactly. So, they make the game seem like it's so hard. And when you look at the structure of the game in terms of 5 out, spotting up in the corners and the angles, there's not that much running. You're not running through screens. You're not getting hit by big guys all the time, in every situation, every time down court. I said, shoot, I think I could go out there and put my hands on my shorts and stand for 10 minutes in the corner guarding somebody that's only going to shoot 3. So it's different in that regard. The toughness part and the times, if you go back to the 60s with Russell and Chamberlain and Oscar Robertson and all those guys, they come through a terrible time socially. And so they had to deal with a lot more. And so there's a lot more that they had to overcome and be mentally tough to do what they did under the circumstances. Today, it's so pleasant. Everybody wants to do for the players. Everybody loves the players. Everybody, even the money. Forget the amount of money. I have no problem with money being made. The problem I have is when you don't understand that there's players like Oscar came in the league making $10,000 and then had to fight for that $10,000 and then had to fight for the right to stay in a hotel with his teammates, and then they're traveling by train. All of those things takes mental toughness. Do we have enough guys today that could go back? The great ones will. But there's a lot of guys that will be home, and there's a lot of guys that should be home now. And that's a different story.
Nah, that's a great point. No question. Let me ask you, I think your last year was with Houston, and Hakeem Olajuwon was drafted out of Houston. Did you know right away that this was the dude?
I did. Once we started training camp, we had Ralph Sampson, who I think was drafted first the year before. And we had Rodney McCray, who was second. So we had some young players, and then all of a sudden we bring in Ralph. Ooh. And so Bill Fitch had his Geritol guards, as he called it. We had Phil Ford, myself, and John Lucas. And
legends.
We would go to practice at training camp, and Bill was, a real psychologist, right? We practiced at 10 in the morning, and then we wouldn't practice till 8 o'clock at night. And his whole thing was, you got to get your rest, and you got to do, because we're going to practice late, and then we're going to get up early. So if you practice late and then you stay out late, you won't be able to do what you need to do in the morning. But we had a one-on-one thing, and Ralph would be the goaltender on one basket, and Hakeem would be the goaltender on the other basket. And you play one-on-one with your guy, but you couldn't beat him, because if you beat him, the big guys were there all the time.
Yeah.
And then Ralph and Hakeem were split up on teams. In the beginning, they always played together as the Twin Towers. One day, Bill decided to put Ralph on one team and Hakeem on the other. After a couple of shakes and dunks, Bill blows his whistle, and he says, Hakeem, change your jersey. Get back over there with Ralph. They never played against each other again. Because I think Bill could see, too, this guy had as I like to say, the commitment to be all that his talent says he could be. Ralph was a very talented guy. I don't know if he was fully committed. I think he was very interested in being good, but he wasn't fully committed to go out there, and especially in the off season. I think that became a problem later on in his career. But I love Ralph. We were, traveled together to the airport and back every time we went on a road trip. So
that's crazy.
That's
a hell of a story.
It really is. It really is. That's I've never heard that before, man. It seemed like just the competitiveness you guys had even at practice just sounds, the stories we hear just sound like it was just a different level back in the days. I want to talk about another one of your teammates, I guess earlier in your career. You played on the Sixers as well, and played along with Dr. J. And if I'm not mistaken, you were part of that team that played against the Showtime Lakers, right, in the NBA Finals. I guess talk about playing with Dr. J and just your experience of playing the NBA Finals.
Dr. J, along with a few other people, are examples that I use with team players that I coach. No matter how good you think you are, they're going to forget about you when you're done. Dr. J, in his time, he's still all-time great, but in his time, he was one of the featured players. People would pay big money to see Doc play. I remember we're in Atlanta, and Doc had something wrong with his toe. And he's in the training room, and I come in the training room, he's sitting on the table, and I was like, Doc, man, you don't need to play tonight. I said, we got this. He said, you don't understand. The people came to see the Doc operate. I got to go perform. And that was his mentality, was to go out there, because there was 20,000 everywhere we went. We were like, a rock star band, similar to what the Lakers were in Showtime. And everywhere we went, no matter what time we got in town, the hotel lobby would be full of people. The game, people would crowd around wanting autographs and pictures. But playing with Doc, I always say Doc did some things that in practice that were more amazing than some of the stuff he did in games. And we practice, I don't think the players practice, so it becomes competitive. And when Doc came out and decided to go win the game, everything else was lost for the other team. He would play, pass the ball, and play as a team player. And then when the game got tight, Doc turned it over, and Doc would do some stuff, and you're like, okay, that's a wrap, right? So, we had a great team. We just didn't have the rebounding consistently that would have given us a championship, and that's why when Moses came, they wound up winning the championship because he was that consistent rebounder over the guys that we had who were all good players. I love Doc. I love Daryl Dawkins and Caldwell Jones. But, ultimately, rebounding, defense, and mental toughness down the stretch is going to win for you.
Nah, I got to meet Doc a few times, not only at the Pump Brothers. Smitty and I go to see Dana and David every year at the deal. I know probably you go as well. I got to ask you, he was doing the Big Three as well, and I was involved in the Big Three for a minute as a football coach, so Dr. J was there, so it's unbelievable talent. I don't know if there's anyone has your resume as far as a player and who you played alongside with. Coach, like you also played with the great Bill Walton in Portland, correct?
I played with Bill Walton, Maurice Lucas. Those two guys were fantastic. And then I left and went and played with Doc and Bobby Jones. And Judd Collins was on the team for a brief moment before he got hurt and his career ended. Mo Cheeks, I leave from there and I go to the Clippers, which wasn't a winning team, but we had Tom Chambers, Terry Cummings. On that team, Randy Smith, who at that time was all-time consecutive games leader in games played. And then I go to Detroit and I play with Isaiah and Bill Laimbeer. And then I finish in Houston with Olajuwon. Then I go into coaching, and I'm coaching Kevin Johnson. I'm coaching Danny Ainge. I'm coaching Dan Marley. And, of course, Charles Barkley, who we call Chuck. And so I've had a lot of great players around me, and I've been blessed to be on good teams. And I tell players, I wasn't the best player on any of those teams. I was a part of helping the best players win. And so I got notoriety just for contributing. Everybody wants to be a star, but everybody doesn't have star talent or star power. And it's okay. Take your gifts that God has blessed you with and go out there and maximize them. That's what success is, not going out and forcing an issue and trying to be somebody that you're not. And Doc used to have this line on some young players at practice, be yourself. You can't be me. You're going to be a bad me if you keep trying to be me. And it's true. I'm not going out there. I tell my man LeBron this. I said, LeBron, we all were blessed with gifts. My gifts weren't the same gifts that God gave you. I said, but I still had a 10-year career playing in the NBA with the gifts that he blessed me with. So it's not a matter how big and how much you have. It's just what you do with what you have.
No doubt. I got to ask you, I'm the only one of my kind that I grew up with in Compton, right? My dad grew up there, my brother, my uncle, everybody we grew up in Compton. And so I grew up watching a legend play in the street. And I'm a huge historian when it comes to that. But Raymond Lewis, I'm sure you remember that name. And I know you have stories as well because I see you smiling. Right here at a gym in LA, he dropped, I don't know, like 60-something on Doug Collins. And they did not put him. They put Doug Collins on the Olympic team or whatever that whole story was. But I remember he used to drop 60. Marcus Johnson, everybody was there when I was a little kid, and they was out there playing at Verbum Day, a school I later coached at. Any Raymond Lewis stories, and how special really was he?
Well, I went to junior college.
Oh yeah, I love it.
In Utah, and we were playing in Yuma, Arizona, and Cal State LA was there, their freshman team, and Raymond Lewis scores 48, and then whoever he was with, this is a story, this is secondhand, that he drove back to LA. And then he came back to play the game the next night, and he had another 48. Wow. And, the guy was simply an amazing basketball player. I mean, unfortunately, the times were so bad for opportunities, and, teams were limiting how many black kids they had on. And they were also trying to paint the NBA a different image because there was a lot of drugs going on in the 70s. So he didn't get a full opportunity. Plus, I think he also hurt himself because he wasn't going to wait his turn. He believed he was all of this and he was better than Doug Collins and anybody else they had on the Sixers. And ultimately, they let him go. But an amazing talent, dribble, shoot, drive, finish. All that you want in an offensive player, he was. Defensively, he was a hands on his shorts kind of guy.
Yeah, no doubt, yeah. Hey, Coach, he come up to Vernon Day in a wheelchair because he had lost his legs at the time. Diabetes and everything got to him before he passed away, and never missed a shot in a wheelchair, Smitty. He was in there like from half court, drilling shit like bah, 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 and I'm like, God, man, this is crazy. And I was a youngster. I'm like, man, unbelievable. But Coach, I can't thank you enough for hopping on here, man, and giving us these gems, because I don't think a lot of the folks out here know anything about the stories you could tell. And hopefully I see you at the Pump Brothers event one day, and we can hook up, man. But I wish you the best success, and hopefully everything's all right. And you got anything you're doing now?
Playing golf and watching my grandkids when they come over, and hopefully I can get another job. It'd be nice to finish up. You want to finish up on your own terms.
On your own terms, yeah.
It's not always the case, but if it isn't, I'll be good with it. But if it is, then I would love an opportunity, Coach. I think that when I look at some of the teams that are playing now, and I wonder why they all try to play the same style. Everybody's running up in quick shooting, and everybody doesn't have run up quick shooting talent. And you got to match your system with the players that you have. And I think that I'm good at that and good at developing relationships. So I look forward to another opportunity.
Smitty has one last question for you, because we got to ask the great Coach. Go ahead, Smitty.
Yeah. Like, last question for me: who's winning it all this year? Can you let us know right now so I can go put my bet in on BetUS? Who's winning it all this year, Coach?
Well, I cannot bet against OKC. We were the youngest team in the NBA to win a championship in '77. They're the youngest team, and they're even younger than we were. So, but they're good in every phase. They're good. Cleveland, Boston in the East, but you're seeing that the playoffs are so different. The competition level and intensity is so different in regular season that you can't predict. You cannot predict, and all it takes is an injury or somebody get hot on one of the teams, and then it's over for you. But I'm going with KC out of the West, and then OKC, and then it's a toss-up between Boston and Cleveland. Cleveland has that length, but Boston has that ability to have 5 or 6 guys shoot threes, and when you have that many guys that can make them, it's hard to help and do what you want to do defensively.
You wouldn't be surprised if Boston repeats, though, huh?
No, not at all. I think Boston is really talented. And the one thing I say, everybody say, oh, that experience. They did it. It's not just the experience of being there. They did it. And when you've done it, you know what it takes, and you have confidence that you can do it again. And then when you go out, you never believe that you can lose. After we won the championship, we won 50 games out of our first 60. And if you check back, we won 4 or 5 games where we're not supposed to win. We're out of the game, but we come back and win because we never thought we were going to lose. We might run out of time every now and then, but we never thought we were going to lose. And that mental state is something that everybody can experience.
No doubt. Again, Coach, man, thank you. I can't thank you enough, and good luck to everything that's going on. Hopefully we meet up soon and have you on again one day. Appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm glad you asked me to come on. It's been a pleasure.
Always. All right, Coach. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.